I miss playing basketball. Now, don't get me wrong. I do love what I get to do now as an athletic director, as a basketball coach, and coming here to YouTube to talk to you guys and help you with your game. I love what I get to do now, but there's nothing like playing the greatest game in the world. I miss taking it to the basket and finishing over a defender. I miss getting a steal where I knew the guy was going to pass it like seconds before he threw it. I miss that feeling of when you shoot a three and you know it's good before it even leaves your hand. There's just nothing like playing our game. Well, my name is Rick Williams, better known as Coach Rick, and in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down 3 key elements of what you can do to maximize your playing career, to make sure that you are playing better in the basketball games. Many of us are killing it in practice. We're what we call practice players. We're comfortable in practice, and there's no problem. But when game time comes around, sometimes that skill's not translating, right? So I got 3 tips that I think are pretty practical that I'm sure are going to really help you guys understand how to have the right mentality when you go into these games. It's the middle of May and you've got live periods coming up. Coaches like myself are going to be coming out to these gyms all around the country, and we're going to have our notepads and our phones, and we're going to be making lists of players that impress us. What stands out to us? What makes us think, yeah, I want that guy in our program? I'm going to tell you what those things are, and all you got to do is then go implement it into the way you play. I got good news for you. If you can pull off all 3 of these, you're going to stand out, because I watch a lot of basketball, and truthfully, most players don't do all 3 of these. I might see 1 or 2 of them being enacted on a weekend, but all 3 is a rare thing. And when you see it, most of the coaches I know, they recognize it and they snatch it up right away. So I think if you stay with me throughout this video, I think you're going to learn a little bit about what you can do to start playing better in the basketball games and get college coaches to notice you. It's going to be a quick video. I got 3 points for you. Number 1, care. Care a lot. We did a video last week where we talked about no taxation without representation. And in that video, it's kind of a funny analogy. We tried to teach you the importance of care. There's 4 pillars to it. I want you to click on that video right there and watch that to learn a little bit more by what I mean on how to take care. But I don't want to dig into that so much today, but I do want you to understand that there's a little voice inside your head that's begging you to resist the idea of caring a lot. All right, what are you talking about, coach? Well, here's the thing. When we go to compete, when we go to do anything in which success and failure are both options, there's a part of our mental psyche, there's a part of our makeup that wants to lower the expectations of success so that the possibility of failure does not hurt as much. All right, I want you guys to think about that. If you think about it and you're honest with yourself, you'll admit that sometimes that happens, right? So let's break it down. If I go to a game and I have kind of a cool mentality, like I'm chill, like it's no big deal. If I score 5 points, no big deal. If I win, no big deal. I have that mentality. Then when things don't go well, my disappointment levels won't be very high. There's an old saying that says the gap between expectations and reality is where frustration lies, right? So people want to close that gap in advance. They lower their expectations so that if reality doesn't go their way, there's no frustration. Don't do that. That's a trap. That's the fastest way to blend in. That's the fastest way to not be noticed, because we see that level of apathy from certain players. Players are going through the motion these days. They're just playing. They're just kind of out there. They don't want to be embarrassed, so they're not sitting down in a stance and competing, right? They don't want to miss, so they're not taking the open shot. There's so much chill, so much cool going on. And look, I'm not here to play a generational game with you guys. I completely understand that you are playing in a different generation than the one I played in, right? So if I'm playing in the early 2000s or late 90s and somebody crosses me up and dunks on me, it's only the neighborhood that's going to know. It's only the people that were in the gym that were going to know. If you guys get crossed up and dunked on, I mean, the whole world's going to know. And so I get that sometimes you may be tempted to not give something everything you have out of fear that what if it doesn't work out? That's a limiting belief. We talk all the time on this channel about the power of your thoughts and being able to categorize every thought that you have as either productive or counterproductive. So if this idea of being cool and relaxed and calm is a counterproductive thought that's making you not give 100%, I want you to get rid of that right now. And I want you to start saying, you know what? I do care. This matters to me. If I play poorly, it is going to hurt. If I lose, I'm going to be disappointed. You have to allow yourself to get to that space of vulnerability now without letting it crush you. So when those things happen, when you miss, when you don't make the starting lineup, when you lose, then you have to be able to absorb that and keep caring. That's one secret to greatness. All right. So that's tip number one, care a lot. If you need help on how to take care, go watch our video that we did last week on no taxation without representation. Point number two. Now, I don't know. I've been coaching since 2004. That's 20 years I've been in this craft, and I have yet to figure out how to make every athlete that I coach understand the importance of communication. Point number two is you have to communicate a lot. Point number one is to care a lot. Point number two is to communicate a lot. The more present you are out in what's happening, the more you stand out. Because what we notice a lot of times when we go and watch, especially travel basketball games, is that there's not a lot of communication. In fact, the communication that we do see is only the counterproductive type. Like we see some trash talk, we see some complaining to referees, we see some frustrating body language on the bench, which does communicate, right? So we see that level of communication, but we don't see the positive communication that we know lends to winning. So what is that? It's picking up a teammate when they're down, right? Someone's missed 2 or 3 shots in a row and they've got their head down, and we notice the athlete that goes up to them and says, "It's okay. Pick your head up. Let's go. We're only down 5," right? The idea of touch points, getting as many high fives in a game as possible. There are certain athletes out there that understand that power of positive communication, and they're working with their teammates as the game is going on. We talked about officials. We like seeing you communicate with the officials effectively by saying, "Good call." Maybe if you go over to him, especially if you're a captain of your team, you go over to the official and ask him a question about a particular call so that you can grow and get better, right? This level of communication is important to us. And I've even talked about the actual game itself. When you're on the helpline, are you letting the world know that you're on the helpline? When you've got to get off that helpline to close out on your defender, are you letting the defender think about something else other than where his elbow is and how set he is to shoot a basketball, right? If I catch a ball as an offensive player and you say nothing at all, you just close out silently, then you give me freedom to think about the things I need to think about to win, to make my shot. But when someone closes out loud and like in my face with something to say and active hands, it is very, very challenging for me. Only the best offensive players in the world can overcome those type of loud, active closeouts. But yet you see them so seldomly. It's a rare thing to see an athlete communicating the entire game. That's the defensive side. On the offensive side, do you know the sets? Are you calling through the sets? We're talking about travel ball. So the question is, first of all, is anyone running anything? But even if they aren't running anything that's super specific or super complicated, you can call for a screen. Like we can do that. We can put our hand up and say, "Hey, you come set me a screen." And then you can ask them to get off that screen fast so they can get into a fade or get into a roll to give you space to work. The bickering communication that we see doesn't necessarily bode well for you. We want to see more positive communication between you and your teammates, you and your coach, and you and the officials. And my last point for today is to tell you a very important story, okay? So the point number 3 is I need you to understand that nobody cares. I know that sounds really, really harsh, but we're in a safe space, right? This is the AGB YouTube channel. You came here to get better. And in that process, we have to have honest conversations. So I'm telling you honestly, that it is going to do wonders for your career when you can get to a space where you realize nobody cares. The thing that you want everyone to stop and pay attention to, they don't actually care. And so I want to tell you guys a story. So I was in high school and I think I was a junior or senior in high school, and the greatest coach I've ever played for, shout out to Steve Cohn in Lake Howell, Orlando, Florida. Just an outstanding coach. He like me, he committed his entire life to the game of basketball, and he knew so much and he taught me so much. And so I was playing in a game once and I remember getting hit really, really hard. I went to the basket, got hit really, really hard, and I kind of fell down on the floor, and I guess I was milking it. I thought I was hit, it was a legitimate foul, but the referee didn't call the foul, which means the game was still going on. And while the game was still going on, I was still down on the ground trying to let everyone know, hey, he hit me. And at the timeout, and my coach was a very, very caring coach. Like before games, we would go to his house and he'd give us food, and you could tell he cared about us a ton. And so for whatever reason, early on in this season, I thought that when I came to the sideline, I was going to be met with like a hug, like, hey man, you got knocked down and I saw that. Maybe he's going to work the refs for me, right? A lot of you guys are doing that. You're waiting for your coaches to work the officials for you. But Coach Cohn didn't do that. Coach Cohn called a timeout, brought everyone to the sideline, and he said, Rick, I got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, nobody cares. He said, you got hit. I saw you get hit. The referee didn't call the call. But nobody cares. The game is still going. You have to get up and keep competing because we're playing. We got 4 on 5 because you're milking it, right? So many of you guys have experienced this before. But if your coach hasn't told you to this point, allow AGB to tell you today. Nobody cares. When you are missing a bunch of shots and you're in your feelings, nobody cares. When you are in foul trouble because the referee have called a couple of calls that didn't go your way when you know you didn't foul them, nobody cares. The game has to keep going. I want you guys to visualize the game of basketball like a freight train, and you're standing in the middle of a track. I mean, you have to move out of its way. It's not going to move out of yours. This sport never stops, right? It's one of my favorite t-shirts that Nike came out with. Basketball never stops, right? And that isn't just a battle cry for working hard and making sure you train 24 hours a day. That is the way the sport works. The whistle blows, they take it out of bounds, and the game keeps going. So I want you guys to have that mentality, a no excuse mentality when you go into these games, and understanding that, yes, of course, if you are actually hurt, I mean, really, really hurt, and you need some serious care, of course, everybody cares. Your parents care about you. The officials care about you. I care about you. But in the spirit of competition, nobody cares. All the guys that we look up to, these professional athletes that make a lot of money playing this game, you will see them accentuate what happened to them, right? They'll look at their officials all the time. I'm watching the playoffs every night, and I see it every night where they're looking and giving us examples to follow of, milking calls and trying to get the ref's attention or doing things. I'm not here to tell you what to do once you make it to a professional level. You get to a professional level and your coaches in those organizations that make a lot of money, and that's an entertainment product, if they're telling you to work the refs, who am I to tell you not to? But at our level, at this amateur level, at this growing level, at this always get better level, we don't have time. That's the honest truth. We just don't have time. You have to keep competing no matter what. A nobody cares mantra is not insensitive. I say it because I love you. Go take that approach to your games. So there you have it, guys. You have 3 great points to help you play better in basketball games. Number 1, care a lot. Do not be afraid of being vulnerable when you play and showing everyone who's watching you play, I'm here to compete. I'm sitting down in a stance, and you are going to know that I am present all game long. Number 2, communicate a lot. Talk to your teammates, talk to the officials, talk to your coaches. Make sure you know your role before the game even starts. Talk to your coach and make sure that you're going to be playing the way he or she wants you to play during that game. All right. Communication is super, super key. And number 3 is take a no excuse approach to the way you play. Nobody cares. We just want to see you compete as hard as you possibly can until that final buzzer. Thanks for listening to the video. Until next time, always get better.